PK in the universe, and welcome to Fast Thoughts, the series where I talk about my fast thoughts on a classic racing game from the bygone era. And not only is this an episode of Fast Thoughts, unfortunately, this isn't the last Fast Thoughts. It's Last Thoughts, I guess. Lately, my heart has not been in making this series anymore. And it's not the end of me making racing videos. I do plan to do them, but less frequently and maybe a little more deeper, maybe a little longer kind of videos. It's fun to give my fast thoughts on games, but I want to get deeper when I talk about racing games. I don't want to make this a series just for the sake of making these videos. I don't want to do that with this. But I wanted to really go out with a bang with this series and talk about my favorite NASCAR game of all time, and that is NASCAR Dirt to Daytona. Prove your worth on the dirt. That's right, folks. NASCAR Dirt to Daytona. I'm so excited to finally talk about this game. I have a lot of fond memories of this. It's a game I played in my early 20s. It's a game I found later. I didn't actually get it when it was new because I had gotten NASCAR 2005, Chase for the Cup, and then later I discovered this. I was like, wait a minute, there was another NASCAR game where you could play as more than one type of car? Because a lot of the past traditional NASCAR games have been, just the Cup Series and nothing else. And a lot of even later games have been like that too, and then they later on would add them and stuff like that. My first experience playing any NASCAR game where you could play as more than one, car besides Cup Series was NASCAR 1999 edition from Papyrus. This is my original childhood copy that I actually had, and I used to play this on my dad's work computer because we didn't have a computer at home at the time. And so, I used to go to my dad's business and I would play this and had a lot of fun. It's got Dale Earnhardt on the cover and Mark Martin, I think, is the back car. Yeah, you could drive as a Truck Series driver, Cup Series. Busch Grand National is what it was called back then. It just says Grand National Series. And I think that's how they got away with the E rating, is they just dropped the Busch title or whatever. And then the thing that was really cool about that game, at least, is you could actually import your own cars. Now, this is not like that. You can't import your own cars. You can, go to the paint booth and paint your own cars and stuff, but you can't do anything as cool and elaborate as that because obviously this isn't connected to a computer. This is the PS2 version. There is a GameCube version as well, which is a lot of fun too, of course. I think that's probably the better version. I don't have that, but want to get that at some point, and eventually I will get it to add to my collection. I'll probably play that version of it too, but this version is pretty much the cheapest version, so hence why I have it. So you get to race in four different series. The Dodge Weekly Series, which is a all dirt track racing series. And all the drivers, of course, in this series are fictitious drivers, which I actually think makes the game a little more timeless, which I think is a really cool aspect of that. Then there's the Truck Series, which has some, stars in there, whatever. Travis Quapple, the 2003 champ, is in it. Brendan Gaughan was kind of a big deal in the Truck Series back then. A lot of people thought he was going to win the championship a couple of times. And then he moved up to the Cup Series and, went from Truck to Cup, which is interesting too, because in this game you go from Truck to Cup. They skip the Busch Series entirely. Before you go from the Dodge Weekly Series, you go to the Modified Series, Truck Series, and then Cup Series. So that's all four series. But the Truck Series, has Brendan Gaughan, Travis Quapple, Matt Crafton. Now, Matt Crafton, as of today, is still a Truck Series driver. He's still driving the number 88 Menards truck, except it's not a blue truck like it is in this game. It's an all yellow truck, but he's been driving that truck since, basically the year 2000. And there was a 2-year stint where he drove for KHI in the 6 truck, but then he came back to the 88 and has been there ever since. Won 3 championships. I think he's got 15 wins, something like that. And old man Crafton is still driving in the Truck Series. So you get to race against a guy who's been racing against other Truck Series drivers for generations. So that's pretty neat. Who else is in this game? Rich Bickle. You guys might not know that name. I actually remember seeing him race. Rick Crawford. If you see Rick Crawford in this game, always wreck him. If you don't know why I say that, go look up Rick Crawford NASCAR on YouTube, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyways, there's some pretty notable drivers in there. Robert Presley. I think he was known as a Busch Series driver for quite a while, and he went down to the trucks at some point. And then you go up to the Cup Series. Of course, this is 2002. This is the 2002 roster. 2002 was a really interesting year in NASCAR. I mean, you had Tony Stewart winning the championship, and he was kind of an unlikely champion. People don't realize that at the time because he got in trouble during the year. There was a point in a race, like he had gotten really upset with a reporter and he punched a reporter or photographer. Maybe it was a photographer, yeah. And yeah, I think he got fined maybe for that or something. And his team was thinking about firing him. But he that next week went on to win Watkins Glen, and then later on in the year went on to win the championship. So just kind of sometimes things work out. It was a crazy situation there. So. And a lot of young drivers were, really breaking out. I mean, the previous year, Kevin Harvick had sadly, had to replace Dale Earnhardt, who was killed in the Daytona 500. He had another good year. I mean, and then Kurt Busch, who I'm wearing a Kurt Busch hat right now here, number 97. His first year, it was kind of rough. He was replacing Chad Little, who ran kind of mediocre, and then Kurt went straight from truck to cup. Yes, this was really a thing. It wasn't just everybody has to go to the Busch Series. A lot of people go from truck to cup, and he was another one of those guys. 2002 was a huge breakout year for him. He had an incredibly improved year, won a bunch of races. There's so many great drivers, and there's some notable drivers who are missing, such as Bill Elliott, whose son Chase is a champion now in the Cup Series. Jeremy Mayfield. Oh, Jeremy Mayfield is a very controversial driver. I still think he was innocent, of what he was accused of, but I'm not going to go into that. It's another story for another day. Yeah, so there's a lot of really good drivers. Dave Blaney is in there. His son Ryan just won the Cup Championship this year. Funny enough, Dave was driving the number 77 Jasper car, which was later bought by Roger Penske, and now Ryan drives for Roger Penske. It's funny enough, the 77 became a Penske car and a Penske number even. And in fact, Brendan Gaughan drove that 77 car, and then later was replaced, ironically, by Travis Kvapil. So, it's interesting with NASCAR how much the seats change all the time. But what I love about these old NASCAR games is they really are a window in time. If you followed NASCAR like I have for quite a few years, you look back on some of this stuff and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that driver. There's a lot of that going on here. It's a real trip down memory lane. Is this game perfect? No. I mean, one thing I did like about the NASCAR Thunder games and the later on other EA games is drivers actually got replaced and retired, where this game, it's always the exact same guys. You're always racing against the same guys no matter what, which is really weird. Like, none of the fictitious drivers ever replace these guys when they retire. So I think that is a flaw of this game, but I do absolutely adore the Dodge Weekly Series. It's a dirt track racing series, and you go to a bunch of different dirt tracks. I don't think the Weekly Series was actually like that back in the day. I think it's more like focused on track championships and stuff like that, so you'd race the same track over and over again. But it really does mix up the gameplay. There's 10 races total in the Weekly Series, so it's just kind of a fun, little, sprint to the finish, and I love the different going on the different dirt tracks. They do actually handle a lot differently. And like I said before, it's all fictitious drivers in that series. So it makes the game a little more timeless. The modifieds, not a fan of. I don't know what it is about the modifieds. I just could not get into the modifieds in this particular game. I actually enjoyed driving the modifieds in EA's NASCAR 2005 Chase for the Cup. I felt like those cars handled better. Whereas on here, it's like I am always happy to finally get through the first 2 seasons of driving modified so I can get to the Truck Series. The Truck Series is a lot of fun. That's like a 14 race series. I remember it being a lot longer. I thought there was like 20 some races at least, but obviously, this game is what it is. And then you finally get to the Cup Series where it gets a lot more fun, honestly. And the neat thing about this game is you actually upgrade your cars. You can actually buy a bunch of different kinds of parts for each series, and you have a parts catalog you go through. There's over 100 parts to upgrade your cars through all 4 series. There's also this cool aspect of the game where it shows like a newspaper. And like you see like, oh, I won that, they show your name like winning races and stuff like that. Or you had choice words for this guy or something. It just has this old timey feel. And like I said, this takes place in 2002. So this was the last year before 2003 when they would stop becoming Winston Cup and went to Nextel Cup. And so this was kind of an end of an era kind of game. Yeah, the career mode, I think, was probably my favorite aspect of this game, and I think that's what really stands out to me, because I could have just done dirt track racing forever and ever, honestly. That was my favorite part of it. To me, this is my favorite NASCAR game of all time. I don't know if it's the very best one, because I haven't played a lot of newer NASCAR games, and some people would consider me lucky for that, because there's been some bad ones. There's been the real stinkers, honestly, I've heard about. But yeah, this is the one I always come back to. It just gives me that feeling, of 20 years ago. Honestly, it makes me feel like I'm transported back to that time. So, but anyways, yeah. So this is the very last episode of Fast Thoughts. I don't know what else I could say. I mean, I could go into a lot greater detail about the drivers, but again, I want to keep this video reasonably short because this is supposed to be Fast Thoughts and this is going to kind of run a little longer than usual. But again, since it's the last one, I want to go out with a bit of a bang. But maybe I will revisit this in a future video. So, but anyways, yeah, this is the final episode of Fast Thoughts. I hope the handful of people who watched this series really enjoyed it. And you know what? I also want to pass the torch on to you. That's right. I would love to see more people make Fast Thoughts videos. I'd love to see more people talk about old school racing games. It doesn't have to be 5 minutes. It could be a little longer, maybe a little less. Doesn't really matter. I'd love to hear your Fast Thoughts. I want to pass the torch to you guys. I'd love to see more people get inspired by this series. Even though I'm not continuing on because my heart's not in it anymore, I'd still love to see other people maybe make these kind of videos. It would be awesome. So if you have some Fast Thoughts, I'd love to see you make an episode like that on your YouTube channel. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching and stay awesome in this universe. And I will see you again with my other videos and maybe some future racing videos down the road. Anyways, stay awesome in this universe. Thanks.